The movie told the story of two female leads who encountered and experienced love with 4 virtual idols. These characters had diverse personalities and styles, with handsome looks, elegant demeanors, strong and fair physiques, and warm personalities. One of the girls found it confusing when everyone around her seemed to be talking to themselves. She wondered if she was going crazy, or if they were, until she discovered they were using a virtual lover service. Through special glasses she bought, she could see that everyone around her seemed to have a partner. These were the virtual lovers, and it was a place where people went to find their perfect love. Her father had promised to return home for Lunar New Year with her, but his fishing job prevented him. Callie had to spend the holiday alone, and she was also 5 minutes late to work due to shopping. For this absurd reason, her boss fired her on New Year's Eve, giving her 3 expired rice balls as a final bonus. Callie took a gift box containing a laptop to her boyfriend, hoping to spend the new year with her only remaining close one. But when she arrived, her inconsiderate boyfriend dumped her, saying he'd fallen for someone else. It felt like all the bad luck in the world was piling on her that day. Watching everyone else by the river enjoying the New Year's fireworks, she could only try to stay strong. Her father had sent her a New Year's gift. Excitedly opening it, she found it was a pair of glasses for the perfect love game. Putting them on, a guy suddenly appeared beside her with a cake. This guy took her to the convenience store, where she'd been fired and promptly got the boss fired. He even fulfilled her dreams of owning a house and seeing her father return and cook her favorite braised fish. These glasses were incredibly powerful. Even though she knew it was all a temporary illusion, Callie was still overjoyed. Through the glasses, she experienced the feeling of being in love with her dream boyfriend and celebrating New Year's Eve with him. Virtual boyfriends became a huge trend among young people, and they even celebrated their virtual boyfriends' birthdays together in the real world. There were even 4 famous virtual idols. Kallie's friend's company organized a speed dating event that coincided with her virtual boyfriend's birthday. All the single women had gone to see their virtual boyfriends, so the speed dating event was full of men and no women. Callie was bumped by an elderly woman on a scooter. Callie was fine, but the woman was seriously injured. Because Callie had to take the woman to the hospital, she was late for her virtual boyfriend's birthday party and couldn't get in. Wandering around the mall, she saw a billboard displaying her virtual boyfriend's image. Even stranger, she encountered a man being chased. He was running for his life and grabbed her to use as a human shield. Once she got her bearings, she realized this man was the spitting image of the virtual boyfriend she adored. Callie tried to get a good look at his face, but he seemed to be in a huge hurry. He tricked her into closing her eyes and then ran away. Thinking about it, the whole thing was absurd. He was a virtual boyfriend, so how could he be in the real world? Driven by curiosity, Callie put on the glasses, determined to find her virtual boyfriend and get some answers. This virtual boyfriend, named Lu Xiao, was still in the virtual world, waiting for her to return for his birthday party. Lu Xiao had 3 wishes. He used 2 for himself and his girlfriend. The third he offered to Callie. Excitedly, she handed him a black hat, wanting to recreate the scene from the mall that evening. The side effects of the virtual boyfriend software were proving disastrous. Single women were refusing dates, and people in relationships were getting divorced to be with their virtual partners. National television addressed the issue, demanding the software director take responsibility for the economic downturn. The software company experienced a power outage, requiring 30 minutes of maintenance. This might explain the string of strange events Callie had experienced. The woman from the scooter accident was also causing a lot of trouble. Callie had to borrow money from her roommate to pay the hospital bills. Dealing with the elderly woman was even more challenging. Callie pleaded with her to pay the bills, even resorting to theatrics and loudly yapping. The woman finally agreed, on the condition that Callie complete a task for her. Callie told her best friend about encountering Lu Xiao at the train station, only to be scolded and told to separate reality from fantasy. Her friend, baffled by the game's popularity, bought the glasses herself, wanting to see what the fuss was all about. Part of her motivation was also to research her competitors' products, hoping to find a way to take them down. The director of this virtual software project lover was very arrogant. During a televised interview, he gave arrogant and haughty responses, leaving even the host speechless. To get her hospital money back, Callie disguised herself as the elderly woman and went to her job. The woman's work hours were from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Staying past 4 p.m. would lead to trouble. It turned out the woman worked as a housekeeper in the mansion, belonging to the creators of the virtual boyfriend software. The company was working on upgrading their virtual characters to a new level, virtual idols. Callie's friend was also testing the software, primarily to compete with the company. However, She was a fiercely independent woman, and none of the virtual boyfriends, not even the one Kale was obsessed with, managed to capture her heart. She even slapped one of them to bring him to his senses. It turned out the 4 virtual heartthrobs were actually confined to the company. Their living quarters were cleaned daily by the elderly woman, and now, because of the accident, by Kale. It was almost time for the men to return, but Kale forgot she had to leave before 4 p.m., narrowly avoiding being discovered. The 4 men noticed something was amiss in their rooms. Director Chanya, after experiencing the rather underwhelming virtual world herself, was perplexed by its popularity and became even more determined to compete with Y4. But she couldn't devise a solid plan, and shareholders were threatening to pull their investments due to declining sales. Kale overheard the elderly woman talking about quitting her high-paying job and immediately offered to take over. The woman's monthly salary was equivalent to Kale's entire annual earnings at the convenience store. Chianya, unable to devise a competitive strategy, decided to write an article about the dangers of virtual reality and its impact on society, hoping to gain empathy from the public. Even Kale found it unacceptable, urging Chianya to delete the article before facing severe backlash. The next day proved her right, before even stepping out of her apartment building. Chianya was confronted by a mob of Y4 fans, but director Chian wasn't easily intimidated. Such tactics were child's play to her. Kale went to the mansion as usual, finished her cleaning duties, and then realized she'd left her bag behind. Retrieving her bag, she found the residents had returned. She then remembered the elderly woman's instructions. Insert a coin into the piggy bank on the bookshelf to reveal a hiding spot. Curious, she hid inside the bookshelf and watched the 3 men sample the food she'd left behind. Their diet seemed incredibly strict, and this was their first experience with what they called junk food. While they were distracted, Kale made her escape. She'd only taken 3 steps when Lu Xiao spotted her. Kale found herself facing all 4 men, including Lu Xiao. Out of curiosity, she reached out to touch his face, but was abruptly thrown to the ground. Terrified, she fainted. Waking up, she overheard their conversation and realized they were Y4, the virtual idols she'd idolized. They were real. Y4 wanted to report the intrusion to director Chianya, even though they knew she was filling in for the elderly woman. For publicly confronting Y4, director Chianya faced consequences. The company website crashed, and she was literally marked with red ink on her face. Using her silver tongue and a personalized approach, Kala managed to convince 3 of the men not to report her to the director. Only one hurdle remained: Lu Xiao. He was proving difficult, insistent on reporting her, despite her threatening to reveal his secret outing that day. Reaching an agreement with him would be tough. The elderly woman, having discharged herself from the hospital, waited outside the company for Kale. Despite Kale's attempts to lie, the woman saw through her and knew she'd been caught by the 4 men. As agreed, Kale continued the housekeeping job, while the woman enjoyed her freedom, splitting the salary between them. Chianya confided in Kale about her troubles, almost prompting Kale to reveal her work at the Y4 mansion. Luckily, she remembered the elderly woman's warning and stopped herself just in time. Keeping her promise to the men, Kale arrived for cleaning, bringing along more of the forbidden foods they'd enjoyed. She felt a sense of excitement and happiness as she went to tidy their rooms. Cleaning Lu Xiao's room, Kale couldn't help but fantasize about him, her virtual boyfriend. She'd carefully prepared a hot pot, and the other 3 men dug in enthusiastically. Only Lu Xiao remained indifferent, coldly retreating to his room. While cleaning, Kale innocently washed Lu Xiao's dusty teddy bear, triggering an unexpected outburst. He flew into a rage and almost fired her on the spot. The bear clearly held a special significance for him. The crowd protesting director Chianya continued to gather outside the company. Online comments began to support Chianya, mostly from company employees, but she felt the support wasn't strong enough. She decided to involve the media. The Y4 software company encountered technical issues, requiring maintenance, giving the 4 men a week off. The atmosphere in the mansion was tense, especially between Kale and Lu Xiao after the teddy bear incident. The other 3 worried she wouldn't return. Kale was struggling too, unsure whether to quit. She was about to offer the job to her roommate when the elderly woman caught her. Resigned, she continued working. Chianya sought empathy from the media, but the reporter seemed uninterested, resulting in an ineffective interview. Kale assumed the men would be at work as usual, planning to finish her tasks quickly and leave, but when she entered, she found all 4 drinking tea, Lu Xiao included. Upon seeing her, he angrily stormed off to his room, infuriating her. The other 3 men told Kale about Lu Xiao's terrible temper. He treasured the teddy bear, not because he loved it, but because of the person who gave it to him. That's why he reacted so fiercely when she touched it. Frustrated, Ka Lei left his room untouched and went home, fuming at herself. After the article hit the front page, many people, mostly men affected by the software, publicly supported director Qianya. Ka Lei tried to make peace with Lu Xiao, even buying him a milk tea, a drink they'd never tried before. Despite her peace offering, he grabbed her and threw her out of the living room. Shamelessly, she simply smiled awkwardly after being tossed out, her heart perhaps fluttering a bit. Qianya's interview clip was shared online by a once famous celebrity, urging his fans to boycott the software. Despite being past his prime, he seemed to have a personal vendetta against director Xu, and openly offered to collaborate with Qianya against the virtual software company. When this reached director Xu, he vowed not to let Qianya off the hook so easily this time. The washed-up celebrity, Qi Chuan, turned out to be a victim of director Xu's deception. Recognizing his talent, director Xu lured him into working for the company. After years of exploiting his work and profiting from his talent, Qi Chuan left, only to discover that all the copyrights to his songs and compositions belonged to director Xu. That's why he wanted to team up with Qianya for revenge. Kala finished cleaning and was about to leave when she saw the front door open and excitedly ran to greet the arriving men. But it wasn't them, it was director Xu. Luckily, noticing Qi Chuan's voice, Kale quickly hid in her secret spot. Director Xu brought the men a pile of clothes, feigning concern while actually interrogating them about their changing physiques. All three had gained weight, and because they refused to explain why, he turned his attention to Lu Xiao. Given their recent conflict, Kale feared Lu Xiao would expose her, but surprisingly, he covered for them, claiming their week off and lack of regulated eating and sleeping had led to the weight gain. The director continued to harp on the negative effects of weight fluctuations. Then, director Chanya received notification that the website was fixed and needed her in the server room for reactivation, but the server room was empty. Qianya started working on the computers when suddenly the whole system shorted out, sparking a fire. A man appeared and helped extinguish the flames, pulling her out of the room. However, the door had been locked from the outside, trapping them both inside. Despite suffering from insomnia for 10 years and being unable to sleep without medication, Qianya somehow fell asleep, upright, thanks to the repairman. Waking up, she was startled to realize the man who'd stayed by her side all night was Xunian, the man she had feelings for. In reality, her meeting with Xunian was partially orchestrated by an employee bribed by Yi Entertainment. This employee had intentionally damaged the server, following their instructions. Meanwhile, Kali, hidden in the bookshelf, remained in the men's room until the following morning. Suddenly, Director Xu arrived looking for Xunian. Kali and the three men scrambled for hiding places. However, their panicked behavior aroused the suspicion of Director Xu's secretary. Just as the secretary stood beneath Kali's hiding spot, about to discover her, Director Xu left the room. They narrowly avoided being found. Qianya couldn't stop thinking about the man who'd been with her that night, amazed that she'd slept without medication. Despite having thrown away the contact lenses, Qianya retrieved them. The next day at work, she was cornered by staff and forced to confess everything to Director Qianya. It turned out the elderly cleaning lady had practically raised Director Xu. Kale was officially fired, but for some reason, after speaking with the cleaning lady, the director allowed her to stay. The unexpected collaboration between Perfect Match and Chanya's company drew public attention, particularly irritating Director Yi of Yi Entertainment. Kali was so infatuated with her virtual boyfriend that she even asked for a picture of Lu Xiao at the office. At home, she carried the picture everywhere, clinging to it despite her roommates teasing. Qianya, unable to sleep without medication, tried recalling Xunian's words from the previous night, but couldn't fall asleep. She went to her best friend, asking for help relaxing her body to sleep. While Qianya remained wide awake, Kale quickly dozed off. Defeated, Qianya called Xunian for his sleep therapy, explaining her insomnia to him. That night, as a young girl doing her homework, her critically ill father passed away while she dozed off, a fact she didn't realize until later. This trauma haunted her for 10 years, causing her severe insomnia. Xunian, learning this, gently explained the underlying reasons for her sleeplessness, helping her understand her own feelings. Today, Kali arrived at work as usual, but without the uniform and helmet, feeling unusually comfortable. The four men, punished for covering for Kale, were forced to run for hours by Director Xu. While cleaning Lu Xiao's room, Kale discovered the hat he wore at the train station and demanded an explanation. But before he could answer, he collapsed onto her shoulder, exhausted from overexertion and lack of food. It turned out Lu Xiao had run away that day to escape confinement, which is why he'd kissed Kalei at the train station. Director Zhu discovered this and severely punished him. Having taken care of a hypoglycemic Lu Xiao that morning, Kalei wanted to experience being cared for in return. Putting on the contact lenses, she summoned her virtual Lu Xiao, wanting to know what it felt like to have a boyfriend. Qianya was using the contact lenses more and more often. She probably needed someone to talk to, and Xunian was really good at listening. It felt a bit like he was manipulating her, although it seemed to be tiring him out. 2. It looked like he might end up falling for Qianya. The support for Qianya kept growing. The crowd outside her company wasn't throwing rocks anymore. They were cheering for her and holding pictures of Y4. Qianya dramatically ripped the pictures up in front of everyone, a clear sign she was ready for a fight. Director Su agreed to a live TV debate with Qianya, but Qianya thought her company had already gotten what it wanted. The debate seemed like a waste of time. Lu Xiao, grumpy and sullen as always, almost punched his bandmates when they asked him about the forced kiss. Kalei, suddenly feeling brave, tried to kiss him again, but security guards stopped her before she could. Lei Na figured out that Kalei and Qianya were close friends. Just as she was being interrogated about their friendship, the worst possible person called, Qianya. Kalei used the call as an opportunity to prove she wasn't involved in anything shady. Even though she was certain Qianya didn't know she worked at Yi Entertainment, Kalei was still kept in that room until the investigation was finished. The 4 men, when they found out she had been taken, were incredibly worried they wouldn't see her again, because Kalei had lied and said she was going out for drinks. Qianya, all alone at home, decided to find someone to drink with. She looked online but couldn't find a single decent person. In the end, she used the virtual lover app to call Xunian over for a virtual drinking session. The entire time they talked, Yi Entertainment was watching remotely. Director Qianya had completely fallen for their trap. Although Qianya was still somewhat level-headed at first, with the way things were going, it was only a matter of time before the situation got much worse. Even though she proved she hadn't done anything wrong, Kali was fired. When she got home, Qianya was passed out drunk at the table, making talking to her completely pointless. Kali was feeling down about losing her well-paying job. Then, Yi Entertainment called and offered her job back. Apparently, Lu Xiao's emotional readings had gotten better since she started working there, but there was a condition for her return. Each of the men had to do 1,000 push-ups. Lu Xiao volunteered to do all 1,000 of Kalei's push-ups for her. I'm not sure if he's starting to have feelings for her or not. Even though Qianya had turned down the meeting with Guang Han, that slick agent agreed for her. She had no choice but to go through with the interview. The night before the interview, Qianya couldn't sleep. She unconsciously reached for the contact lenses. Remembering what the pharmacist had said, she realized she was relying on her virtual boyfriend instead of sleeping pills. Junian was teaching her how to dance virtually. When Kalei came home carrying a lot of groceries, she caught Qianya dancing with her virtual boyfriend and teased her about it all night. To show her gratitude for them helping her keep her job, Kalei bought a cake for the 4 of them. She even got Lu Xiao a big cake and 3 smaller ones for the others. Actually, Guang Han had planned for Kalei to continue working there. He wanted Lu Xiao to watch Kalei, write down everything she did, and give regular reports to him. Kalei gave Xunian some cake and casually asked him about his ideal type of woman, mostly to compare and see why her friend liked him so much. The other 3 guys were eavesdropping outside the door, and they misunderstood, thinking that Kalei, who had been into Lu Xiao just a few days earlier, had now set her sights on Xunian. Lu Xiao was seriously watching Kalei, making notes of everything she did. While she was cleaning by the pool, she slipped and fell in. Witnessing the entire event, Lu Xiao was suddenly flooded with repressed memories of his brother, who had drowned years ago. Unable to delay any longer, he jumped into the water to save her. After Kalei woke up, she kissed Lu Xiao, simply said she was returning the favor for him saving her. She was a foolish girl. She wasn't content with just doing her job. She was far too curious about everything around her. Because she was so curious about how Lu Xiao was able to get out, she found the secret passage behind the bookshelf. Following the tunnel, she came out on a completely new street. The debate between the 2 company CEOs raged on. Qianya successfully turned the tide of public opinion during the debate. The support that had been leaning towards Guang Han completely shifted to Qianya, 100%. Just as they were about to announce the winner, Guang Han played a video. The video showed Qianya using her virtual boyfriend, Xunian, to fall asleep, and it had been recorded without her knowledge. Everyone in the studio turned their backs on her, calling her a fraud. Her use of the virtual boyfriend app violated her contract with Chi Chuan and required a massive payout, 10 million RMB. She had no idea how she would pay for it. Her assistant delivered some good news. He'd secretly changed the amount to 1,000 RMB. The compensation was settled in a flash. But one thing both of them couldn't figure out was how, without notifying anyone, that video had been extracted from her private virtual boyfriend account. With Kali's strange behavior lately, Chanya immediately suspected that the person who betrayed her was the only one who saw her use the device. But thinking it over, Kali completely trusted her during their school days. Chanya had no other choice but to lay it all out, saying that even though she didn't want to be suspicious, Kali's behavior left her with no other explanation. As for Kali, even though she really wanted to explain the reason, she couldn't talk about her work in the secret garden, so she just remained silent. The next morning, she couldn't hold it in anymore. She took Chianya's hand, led her through the secret tunnel to the secret garden, and let her see with her own eyes that Shunian was real. Chianya wanted to confirm it, so she logged into the virtual lover account. Unfortunately, the account was locked, and she even received a taunting message from Guang Han. Junian, after completing his mission, could no longer reach Chianya. Lu Xiao's report was reviewed by Guang Han. It turned out that he exploited Lu Xiao's kindness, pushing his performance indicators to become perfect. What a capitalist geezer. Chianya, in order to verify if Shunian was real, decided to buy another account. But after logging in, she only encountered that sly fox, Guang Han, again. He had blocked her every which way. Chianya really wanted to meet Shunian in person, to see if he looked the same in real life as he did in the game. She even went as far as drawing a map to the secret garden. Kali found out and tried her best to stop her, but failed. She had to bite the bullet and promised to do it for Chanya. Kali, drunk and asleep, didn't wake up until noon. Tianya went to find a solution for her hangover, and fearing she wouldn't find her honey water, replaced all the regular water in the pitcher with honey water. Junian also really looked forward to seeing Chianya again. Kale carried out her mission, successfully persuading Shunian to meet with Chianya. To avoid being discovered, they agreed to meet at the secret train tracks. Even though they waited until very late to leave unnoticed, people kept coming out to the living room. In the end, Kali had to sacrifice herself, letting Shunian go out alone. She had to use a teddy bear to threaten Lu Xiao. Unexpectedly, while chasing each other, he caught her to prevent her from falling into the pool, and their lips touched once again at this very pool. But this kiss felt different for Lu Xiao. It seemed this time he was truly moved. Junian and Chianya met at the emergency exit, but only confirmed that they were indeed the people they played in the game. After this meeting, Chianya realized that Shunian and Guang Han were in cahoots, playing a prank on her. The old woman met with Guang Han to ask about his plan. She didn't want the boys' contracts to continue indefinitely, without an end date, but she only received vague words from him. Director Qian learned that the person who indirectly harmed her was an employee within the company. She called the woman in, and immediately learned that the woman had swapped the contact lenses. She took this opportunity to publicly announce to the media that there would be some hot news. This time, it was her uphill battle against Guang Han. The sensational news that Qianya was referring to was the secret garden. Wanting to expose Guang Han, Qianya didn't realize the consequences of this revelation. She simply thought that Kali would lose her job and secretly filmed the entire scene of the garden. As previously planned, Kali decided to use beer to get Lu Xiao drunk this time. The four of them tasted the forbidden fruit for the first time, drinking so much that they were completely wasted, and Qianya captured it all. While standing in front of the pool, she was suddenly grabbed by Xu Nian. Kali's main goal was to extract information from Lu Xiao, but he fell asleep halfway through. Director Zhu made a surprise inspection. Only Xu Nian was still awake in the entire room. The others were passed out drunk. While he was reprimanding the four of them, a sudden noise came from the room. Xu Nian was certain they were going to die at Director Xu's hands. This time, he was sure he would discover Qianya. When Guang Han opened the door, Kale was the one who bore the brunt of it. Luckily, it was Kale who had fallen. If it had been Qianya, who knows what their fate would have been. Qianya was truly fearless. Even after being threatened like that, she was still determined to see it through. Kale followed the old woman's instructions and went to see a woman. She was to care for this woman, who was suffering from a brain tumor. It turned out to be Lu Xiao's mother. Kali had seen their family photo in Lu Xiao's room. Kali learned about the plan to overthrow Guang Han, but something worried her. It was the fact that the four of them had lived in the basement year-round. How could they survive if they left that place? Kali and Qianya decided to go to the secret garden. Kali wanted to tell Lu Xiao about his mother's illness, and Qianya wanted to give Xunian a choice. Xunian led Qianya to a secret place, surprising her with a Ferris wheel. There, Xunian confessed that he initially acted only because of the director's assignment, but over time, he developed genuine feelings for Qianya and could no longer control himself. Qianya wanted to help Xunian escape with her. Just beyond that door lay freedom. But Xunian wasn't ready, afraid of a world he had never known. In the end, they couldn't escape together. Kale also failed to get Lu Xiao to visit his mother. Lu Xiao had once snuck out to see her, but he was caught and punished, making him too afraid to try again. Xunian had witnessed Lu Xiao's punishment for that attempt. The director's terrifying discipline, combined with his trust in Guang Han, kept him from leaving with Qianya. The reporter, after receiving Qianya's tip about the explosive news, kept pressing her for the story. Worried about Xunian, Qianya considered holding back the news. However, the company's revenue had been zero for the past few months, and the manager urged her to release the story as a lifeline for the company's finances. Kali's father returned home after years of working away. As they did every year, father and daughter visited Kale's deceased mother. The father and daughter wrote down the events of the past year, hoping their mother would somehow receive their messages. Xinya's controversial actions greatly impacted the company, causing investors to pull out their funding altogether, and some even demanding she sell the company. But it was her first passion project, and Qianya couldn't bring herself to do it alone. Xunian wrestled with Qianya's words, and finally couldn't take it anymore. He walked out the emergency exit and into the outside world. For someone experiencing it for the first time, everything felt new to Xunian. Even the rain was a novel sensation. Somehow, Xunian, clutching a flower given to him by a street vendor, made his way to Qianya's company. To get there, he had to overcome his fear, but his desire to see Qianya was stronger. That's the power of love. That evening, they had a very romantic first date. Unfortunately, a former employee of the restaurant, who had been fired, spotted them. Xunian, emboldened by this first encounter in the real world, made plans to meet Qianya again the next evening. He yearned to live in this world, rather than remain confined to the garden. The reason Lu Xiao avoided seeing his mother stemmed from the past. When his brother died, rumors spread blaming Lu Xiao, calling him a jinx, and saying his family was cursed for taking him in. Kala decided to convince Lu Xiao to see his mother again. She told him about her own deceased mother, hoping to move him to see his mother before it was too late. The artist who had previously worked with Qianya was constantly looking for ways to get revenge on her over the contract dispute. Wang Han, having caught wind of the upcoming performance, immediately provoked the former employees. Y4 was practicing hard for their debut. Wang Han wanted them to become idols, not just do these kinds of jobs. Lu Xiao snuck out of the garden again, wearing a helmet and pretending to be Kale, but he only fooled the security guard for a moment. Then, they were both spotted. Kali, riding her newly purchased scooter down the road, caught Lu Xiao, wearing her helmet and running. Luckily, she intervened just in time to save Lu Xiao from the pursuing security guard. Kale knew that if Lu Xiao didn't return, Wang Han would take drastic action. She sped off on her new scooter, leading Lu Xiao to a shortcut, and they successfully slipped back into the secret garden just before Guang Han came to inspect. Even though he saw Lu Xiao in the room, Guang Han forced everyone out for questioning. Amidst the tension, Kale cleverly intervened, claiming a power outage and saying she had gone out to buy scented candles. Since Lu Xiao was dressed exactly like Kale, and the security guard's description matched Kale's current appearance, she saved him again. Director Zhu, unable to find further proof, had to leave. After this incident, Kale promised to take Lu Xiao to see his mother using the secret passage. They both had their reasons and promised to keep each other's secrets. Director Qian waited for her boyfriend at the company, but he didn't show up. They crossed paths on their way home, both working late, one helping the person he liked, the other waiting for her boyfriend for a date. That night, Kale and Lu Xiao were going out. During practice, Lu Xiao and Xunian secretly signaled each other, one keeping watch while the other slipped away. Thanks to Xunian distracting the other two with dance practice, Kale and Lu Xiao successfully snuck out. Riding her scooter, they zipped through the city streets, heading to the hospital. The mother's condition had worsened. They arrived after visiting hours and couldn't get in. Their only hope was for Kali to figure out a way to visit during proper hours the next day. After Kali and Lu Xiao returned to the garden, Xunian could finally rush off to meet his girlfriend. Each date was a new adventure for Xunian, filled with experiences he'd never had before. He even had to wear disguises to avoid being recognized. This secretive dating wasn't so bad after all. However, their joyful rendezvous took a turn when they encountered other users of the virtual lover app. This led to a disagreement, and Qianya lost her temper. Thanks to the all-access pass Qianya had given him, Xu Nian watched the video of her argument. He finally understood why she had gotten upset and the pressure she was under. The argument left them both with a lot to think about. It turned out Wang Han had been betrayed by two famous celebrities in the past. According to the old woman, their departure was due to his arrogance and overbearing nature. His reasons for debuting Y4 as real people ran deep. Lu Xiao faked a fever to skip practice so he could follow Kali outside and visit his mother. He was so determined to see her that he made himself genuinely sick. This was the only way they could escape the garden. This time, Lu Xiao successfully saw his mother, but her remaining time was short. It was likely their last meeting. On their way back, Kali's scooter was stolen. They took a taxi, but got stuck in traffic. It would take at least 30 minutes to reach the garden, and they only had a little over 20 minutes left. What bad luck. Left with no other choice, they ran back. Just then, the secretary returned to remove the fourth. It was a close call. They reached the bookcase just as the secretary entered the room. Luckily, they managed to avoid detection. Despite expecting a prolonged period of anger between Xu Nian and Qianya, they were both quick to realize their mistakes. They met at the train station, and a kiss sealed their reconciliation. Lu Xiao, still feverish, wanted to share his story with Kale about losing his father, then his foster mother, and finally his foster brother. Because of these tragedies, people called him a jinx. Since then, Lu Xiao had withdrawn from others, plagued by insecurity and the belief that he truly brought misfortune to those around him. He even warned Kale that it was best for her to stay away from him, to avoid being affected by his perceived bad luck. However, Kale continuously refuted his negativity, working to bolster his confidence and assure him that he wasn't a jinx. Qianya took Xu Nian to the entrance of her company, allowing him to witness firsthand the sight of people completely immersed in the virtual world, lost in their interactions with the virtual companions. After they returned, she thoughtfully provided Xu Nian with a cell phone, specifically to make it easier for them to communicate with each other from now on. Because Lu Xiao was running a fever, the entire pot of lovingly prepared chicken soup was set aside and reserved just for him. Kale fiercely protected it, making it clear that anyone who dared to approach and ask for even a small portion would be unsuccessful. After his enlightening experience and shift in perspective, Lu Xiao underwent a dramatic and rapid personality change, a transformation so significant that the other three couldn't believe it. Before, no one had ever managed to engage in a conversation with him for more than a couple of sentences. This time, however, marked the most spectacular change in his demeanor. The phone that Qianya gave to Xu Nian was specially configured, with his own voice set as the ringtone. When Qianya sent a text message to Xu Nian, the unexpected sound of his own voice startled the entire group, momentarily causing a bit of a panic. Fortunately, no one discovered the true source of the ringtone, or the secret connection between Xu Nian and Qianya. Because he had to go to practice, Lu Xiao entrusted Kale with the important task of delivering the teddy bear to his mother in the hospital. At the hospital, Kale found Lu Xiao's mother's health deteriorating. She was even facing surgery. Lu Xiao's mother entrusted Kale with a watch to give to him. When the four returned from practice, the secretary brought them a pile of new clothes. Unexpectedly, she found one of Qianya's company shirts in Xu Nian's closet. Lei Na pressed him for an explanation, almost calling Director Zhu. Quick-thinking Kale intervened again, falsely claiming that Xu Nian had a secret crush on her and had taken her shirt. This girl was truly their savior, rescuing them time and time again. Because Lai Na had previously suspected a love triangle between Xu Nian, Kale, and Qianya, she accepted this explanation without a doubt, even happily reporting back to Director Xu. During their date that evening, Qianya laid everything out for Xu Nian, giving him the choice to stay in the garden or experience the outside world. Kale went to Qianya's company, seeking advice on confessing her feelings to Lu Xiao, but Qianya's tips proved unhelpful. Instead, Kale discovered that Qianya had mortgaged her house and car to pay her employees' salaries. Alas, their dream of a four-person house was crumbling before the foundation was even laid. As promised, Kale visited the old woman, hoping to glean information about the secret tunnel. While she couldn't get any useful romantic advice from Qianya, the old woman, with her wealth of experience in matters of the heart, was able to give some sense to the love-struck Kale. After the visit, Kale broke up with Lu Xiao, that is, with the Lu Xiao from the virtual game, not the real Lu Xiao from the garden. She wanted to end the virtual relationship, to pursue a real one with him. Kale meticulously prepared herself, dressing up and putting on makeup before heading to work. This time, she was determined to confess her feelings to Lu Xiao. Her actions surprised everyone, and Lu Xiao was certainly no exception, reeling from the unexpected turn of events. Tragically, Lu Xiao's mother passed away suddenly. This unforeseen event left Lu Xiao devastated, and Kale was equally heartbroken. Even after returning home, she continued to cry softly. Lu Xiao, upon his return, shut himself in his room, refusing to speak to anyone. Even when Kale brought him breakfast, Lu Xiao refused to eat, spending the entire day in his room, grieving for his mother. She had spent her life searching for him, and he only had that one final visit before she passed. Kale waited outside his door until she fell asleep. Lu Xiao snuck out alone to drink. By the time the others found him, he was completely drunk. He refused to listen to anyone, so they left Kale to reason with him. Given Lu Xiao's situation, Qianya became curious about Xunyan's parents. He didn't know his father, and his mother had left after he was born. He had no desire to find her, preferring to wait until things settled down before searching for answers. To help Lu Xiao recover emotionally, Kale took him to the hot air balloons, where she and her father went every year to commemorate her mother. There, Lu Xiao wrote a letter to his mother, pouring out his heart. The act brought him considerable peace. After listening to the old woman share what she believed would be his mother's final words, Lu Xiao held Kale's hand as they returned to the garden. Perhaps this shared experience sparked a deeper connection between them. Lu Xiao placed all of his mother's belongings in a box, a symbolic way of putting the past behind him and untangling the knots in his heart. Kale brought a cake to the garden to comfort him. Qianya offered Kale a ride to work, but instead of driving, she led her through the secret tunnel. Upon entering, Kale was surprised to see the tunnel carefully decorated with lights. She assumed there was a party in the garden. Following the path of lights, she arrived at a spot specially prepared by Lu Xiao. Kale was overwhelmed by the romantic setting. Lu Xiao, playing the guitar and singing, confessed his feelings for her. Finally, Kale's unrequited love had a happy ending. This plan had been orchestrated by Qianya and the others. Her best friend even surprised her with a brand new scooter to replace the one that had been stolen. The next day, when Kale arrived at work, she found the room spotlessly clean. She initially thought the old woman had returned and finished her chores. It turned out Lu Xiao had made the other three clean the entire place themselves. This caused quite an uproar as they complained about being punished for Lu Xiao and Kale's relationship. After becoming Lu Xiao's girlfriend, Kale didn't have to lift a finger to do any chores. She even rushed through her practice sessions to spend time with him and diligently learned to cook his favorite dishes. The following days were filled with sweet moments. One rainy day, as Kale ran home getting soaked, Lu Xiao suddenly appeared and offered her a ride. Meanwhile, the photo of Qianya and Xunyan at the restaurant reached Director Xu Pri. Lei Na recognized Xunyan's shirt as the same one she had found earlier. This time, it would be difficult to deceive them, and the coming storm promised to be much fiercer. Qianya discovered the phone she had given Xunyan. Both Xunyan and Kale were captured and brought to the room, their hands and feet bound. Xunyan demanded to know why they were being held captive. Guang Han, in a rare moment of candor, revealed the truth. Haunted by past betrayals, he feared being hurt again, and so he had imprisoned them for 20 years. Furthermore, the story about Xunyan's parents abandoning him was a lie. Guang Han himself was Xunyan's father. He had taken Xunyan and the other three children to create the perfect Y4 group. The old woman arrived and explained everything to Xunyan in detail. His mother had been a famous actress under Guang Han's management, and also his lover. But Guang Han, driven by greed, saw her only as a cash cow for his company and refused to acknowledge their relationship publicly. When she became pregnant with Xunyan, she wanted to leave show business and focus on her family. But the heartless Guang Han refused and tried to force her to have an abortion. That child, Xunyan, now suffered under his father's imprisonment. Driven by his twisted plan, Guang Han had cruelly confined these innocent children. Although they were orphans, his motives were far from noble. The revelation about his father deeply affected Xunyan. He met with Qianya to break up with her, arguing that they owed Guang Han gratitude for raising them for 20 years and couldn't be on the same side. He felt powerless against his father. Heartbroken, Qianya confided in Kale about the breakup. After a night of drinking to drown her sorrows and a lecture from Kale, Qianya realized she had lost her phone. Crucially, it contained evidence about the secret garden. It turned out that Xunyan, threatened by his father into harming Qianya, had deliberately broken up with her and taken the phone containing the incriminating evidence. He did this to protect her, But their cruel father wasn't so easily deterred. He had secretly assigned someone to watch and potentially eliminate Qianya. She went to the restaurant to search for her phone, but only found a blurry video showing it being taken by someone who resembled Zhu Nian. This misunderstanding was sure to drive them further apart. Drunk and distraught, Qianya stumbled towards the secret tunnel entrance to the garden. Wang Han's henchmen followed close behind, threatening to expose the secret passage. Luckily, he mistook her drunken stupor for a wrong turn and left, keeping the tunnel's location safe for now. Fu Shun also caught wind of Guang Han having her followed. Qianya went through the tunnel to the secret garden, confronting Zhu Nian about her phone. He pulled her into the bookcase, promising to explain everything that evening when they all went out. Lei Na, noticing Zhu Nian's absence from practice, went directly to the garden to retrieve him, but Zhu Nian was hiding in the bookcase, too afraid to emerge. The man tailing Qianya, finding her behavior suspicious, returned to the train station to wait. While questioning Kali, she almost blurted out that Zhu Nian was the virtual boyfriend. Guang Han agreed to let the other three go free after the plan was complete. If Zhu Nian sided with him, this offer clearly tempted Zhu Nian. However, his true goal was to free all three of them, and he refused to join his father's side. Guang Han's man continued his surveillance outside the train station. Qianya was almost discovered, but Fu Shun quickly intervened, creating a distraction and saving her. Fu Shun revealed that the tunnel's construction had a specific purpose, and hoped they would help the four escape. That night, the four planned to break free from the secret garden, meeting with Qianya and Kale to carry out their plan. They thought convincing the other two to leave would be difficult, but it turned out they were eager for adventure and agreed before they could even finish explaining. At 9 p.m. sharp, all four went through the bookcase and out into the world. The two experiencing the outside for the first time were amazed by everything. If it weren't for Zhu Nian and Lu Xiao holding them back, they probably would have tried everything. Because the two newcomers weren't wearing masks, they were spotted by fans on the street and had to run for their lives into a bar. While Zhu Nian and Qianya talked, the other two snuck off to dance, drink, and even boldly ordered the strongest liquor on the menu. Jealous of the others having girlfriends, Kale's friend quickly went looking for one of his own, and ended up getting into a fight with her boyfriend. The other, struggling with social anxiety, panicked when suddenly surrounded by people and ran off. When Zhu Nian and Qianya finished their conversation and looked for the others, they were gone. One was badly beaten because his chosen companion was more interested in her virtual boyfriend. Luckily, both eventually made it back to the garden, but the other four, unable to find them, were still wandering the streets. By the time they returned, the two were asleep, but news of their outing, including photos, had already spread online. They wanted to bring everyone out of the garden, but after the bar incident, the two newcomers refused to leave. One claimed a childhood kidnapping by a woman had left him with lasting trauma, but after hearing his story, the group insisted his story sounded more like he'd been sold to Guang Han by someone he knew. Yet he still trusted Guang Han implicitly. All four of them had now achieved 100% on their performance indicators. Guang Han decided to disband the garden. He unexpectedly arrived at their quarters early in the morning, informing Kale of her dismissal and revealing that their scooter had been found at the train station. Wang Han's men had discovered Qianya's bag inside the vehicle. He then announced that they no longer had to live in the garden, and each would be given a house. Zhu Nian agreed to accept his arrangement. However, the houses assigned to the others were actually a form of confinement. The surveillance team reported Qianya's scooter to Wang Han. Lai Na also came across the photos from the previous night online. Wang Han immediately rushed to the train station, where Kali and some of Qianya's company employees had also arrived. But the station entrance was surrounded by Guang Han's men. Guang Han himself then entered the tunnel to investigate. Inside, the others started to run. It was clear they were trying to escape via the tunnel. They fought Guang Han directly to break free, but they were captured outside by his men. All his promises of help were lies. He was a venomous snake, not sparing even his own son. He had everyone arrested and threatened to kill them all, including Zhu Nian. Kali was not spared either. Qianya's secretary went into the tunnel with Kale, unwittingly walking into a trap and being captured alongside the others. Zhu Nian and Lu Xiao found a way to smash a vase, freeing themselves and the others. All exits from the garden were blocked. Guang Han intended to keep them imprisoned until they died. Lu Xiao cleverly found an escape route through the ceiling, and they fled together. The garden security guards spotted them and gave chase. During the pursuit, Kale was caught by the largest guard, who gave her two options: electrocution or jumping from a height. Just then, Lu Xiao arrived. knocking the guard down. Working together, they managed to reach their waiting car and escape. They sought help from Fu Shun. Lu Xiao, injured from his fall, was hospitalized in a coma, but was safe under Fu Shun's protection. Qian Ya contacted a reporter to expose the truth about Y4 and Guang Han's imprisonment, but Guang Han was faster. He preempted them by publicly releasing the information himself. He spun a tale of kindly adopting them, even presenting adoption papers. He portrayed himself as benevolent, offering to take responsibility for any wrongdoing on their part. He used photos of them secretly escaping through the tunnel to claim that he had never imprisoned them and that they were always free to come and go. Guang Han continued his attacks on Qian Ya, claiming that he had helped them by setting them free. He sent someone to the hospital to convince Lu Xiao that this was their chance. After leaving the secret garden, becoming idols was their only way to survive. They had no prior work experience, making it incredibly difficult to navigate life outside. Qian Ya's company had gone bankrupt, her house and car were seized, and years of hard work were destroyed. All she had left were her best friend and her boyfriend. To comfort Qian Ya, Shunian took her to an amusement park. Life outside the secret garden was not easy for any of them. They all faced a completely new reality, and Qian Ya's only support, her house, was about to be sold. Lu Xiao and Shunian were relatively responsible, but Luo Qi and Su Lai were frivolous and lazy, constantly spending money and pursuing pleasure. Despite being scolded by Fu Shun for their irresponsible behavior, they remained defiant, even demanding food without money. Their actions soon backfired. When they tried to leverage their future fame to get a free meal, the restaurant owner refused, and they were almost beaten up. After a night of drinking with Shunian, Qian Ya returned home drunk and tearfully confessed to Luo Qi that she couldn't keep her promise of supporting her for life. With Qian Ya's house about to be repossessed and her car already sold, Lu Xiao refused to rely on anyone. Knowing he could play musical instruments, he decided to become a music teacher. However, having lived in the secret garden, he lacked real-world work experience, so being a teacher was quite difficult too. Meanwhile, Su Lai and Luo Qi were approached by a man who paid for their meal, inviting them to an even more luxurious restaurant. They enjoyed a lavish meal and stayed in a presidential suite. He offered them lucrative contracts, promising to pay for their housing, cars, and salaries. Naive as they were, they fell for the scam. When they tried to return to the suite, he had vanished, leaving them with an unpaid bill and several companies demanding payment for damages. Just as they were being hounded by creditors, Lai Na appeared and saved them. Lu Xiao was rejected for the teaching job, but told Kali that he hadn't gotten the position yet, fearing she would worry. He then looked for other work. His prior experience in the secret garden, dancing, playing music, and singing, helped him gain entry to a studio. He was well received and very popular there. The female staff were all vying for his attention, much to the jealousy of the older employees. Kale greeted Lu Xiao after work, offering to make hot pot to celebrate his new job. Initially, she tried to invite everyone, but discovered that Su Lai and Luo Qi had returned to the secret garden, which had become a tourist attraction for fans of the boys. They spent their days playing games, accepting gifts, food, and clothing from visitors. When the four went to find them, they were exasperated. Su Lai and Luo Qi refused to listen to reason, content to live a life of luxury without work, essentially living as exhibits in a human zoo. Frustrated by their stubbornness, Lu Xiao punched Su Lai, venting his anger at their foolishness. Meanwhile, Qian Ya and Shunian went to seek investment. This proved challenging due to intense competition, especially given Qian Ya's recent bankruptcy and Lu Xiao's unstable employment. Because of his good looks and newfound fame, Lu Xiao was constantly harassed by female students, starting with hugs and kisses on the cheek, escalating to dinner invitations. This overwhelming attention, coupled with his lack of experience, frightened him, leading him to consider quitting his teaching job. Lu Xiao returned home, feeling dejected and conflicted. He sat downstairs, hesitant to go up to Kali's apartment. Seeing him sitting there, Kali worriedly approached, asking what was wrong. She knew he had lost his job, but pretended not to, wanting to give him space to tell her himself. They sat down quietly for a heart-to-heart. The investor's comments surprised Shunian, as he lacked experience in this area. Qian Ya could only offer comfort, hiding her own anxieties. Only when Shunian went to the bathroom did she quietly cry, overwhelmed with guilt for what had happened to her company. Because of them, the man who had contacted them earlier revealed what he'd heard about Shunian, implying that while he may seem kind-hearted, his intentions may be malicious. Meanwhile, the artist Qian Ya had previously worked with came to her house to taunt her. He He even told her that Xu Nian was kneeling before Guang Han, begging for investment for her company. Qian Ya rushed to Guang Han's house and heard Xu Nian confess to asking for help. However, instead of being grateful, Qian Ya was furious. Xu Nian explained that it was his way of showing his love, since he felt responsible for her bankruptcy and didn't want her to suffer any longer. They had a terrible argument. Then, Qian Ya was involved in a car accident and pronounced dead by doctors. But in another world, Qian Ya found herself and the 4 others in a different room, their data still being extracted. She realized that only her friends were real, everyone else was a robot. After being declared dead, and then waking up, claiming all this, nobody would believe her. However, Qian Ya showed Kali how to verify her story. The pendulum Kali had given her previously swung for only a moment before stopping, but back in her room, the pendulum swung continuously, showing no sign of stopping. Another method was to ask acquaintances about shared events. The responses confirmed that they were indeed interacting with robots. This world was a game created by Guang Han. The real people were trapped in data extraction chairs. They had to forcibly take the 2 irresponsible friends along. No amount of explanation seemed to make any sense to them. All 7 jumped from the rooftop. The game ended, and they miraculously returned to the real world. Fu Shun pleaded with Guang Han to stop, but his greed was insatiable. He warned her not to interfere. The 7 escaped the room and found the secret tunnel, only to discover the exit was sealed. They thought they were trapped to die. Fu Shun successfully bribed the guard stationed outside, and armed with a sledgehammer, smashed through the wall. Before Guang Han's men arrived, she got them into a waiting car and helped them escape. Faced with this situation, Guang Han preemptively posted online that 4 imposters had pretended to be Y4, aiming to deceive the public. Qian Ya's house was surrounded, making it impossible for them to go home, leaving them with nowhere safe to go. While driving, they noticed Guang Han's men pursuing them. The relentless chase forced them to abandon the car and flee on foot. Finding a place to hide was a major challenge. Every place they tried was unsuitable. Fu Shun, anticipating this, had left a message at a beauty salon. The message contained a map leading to her secret base, a hidden location she had prepared and meticulously planned. She left a message for them there, along with all the evidence of Guang Han's crimes. The evidence wasn't easily accessible. She hid it in a difficult-to-find location and left them a note with a series of numbers, a code to unlock its hiding place. The ruthless Guang Han wouldn't even spare his own son, attempting to erase Fu Shun's memories while she was in a coma. Continuing his data extraction research, his greed was truly maddening. Xu Nian and Qian Ya talked, resolving their misunderstandings and sharing a kiss in the secret base. However, the article about Fu Shun was a trap to lure them into action. While 2 went to rescue Fu Shun, 2 others went to the library to find evidence. In the secret garden, Guang Han's men were already pursuing them. Fortunately, the manager returned to find them escaping, but they were still pursued. On the run, they encountered Xu Nian and Qian Ya. They fought back, but were overpowered. Xu Nian stayed to delay the pursuers, while Qian Ya and the manager fled. With the situation dire, the injured manager and the 2 less capable members of the group quickly sought refuge. Qian Ya raced to the library to find Lu Xiao and Kalei. Lu Xiao and Kalei found the book and brought it back to the forest. They only realized they were surrounded after arriving, managing a narrow escape. After losing their pursuers, they boarded a subway train, only to have Guang Han find them. He discovered that Fu Shun had prepared this plan long ago and had seen the evidence she had collected against him. Their situation was critical. While waiting for the next train, Kali and Lu Xiao were pursued by men in black. Being in a shopping mall, they hid in Kali's workplace, a cosmetics store. Unfortunately, a colleague arrived at closing time, unaware of their hiding place in the storage room. The colleague locked the store, trapping them inside. Despite their efforts, they couldn't open the door and had to spend the night in the store. Despite the less than ideal circumstances, Xu Nian prepared a candlelit dinner for Kalei. Qian Ya once again sought help from Qi Chuan. While his assistance wasn't extensive, it was better than nothing. Qi Chuan drove Qian Ya to find Xu Nian and sent someone to the library to wait for Kali and Lu Xiao. However, the 2 were stuck, reading books in the cosmetics store. Su Lai fell asleep in the library while waiting. A girl approached him, mistaking him for a character from a virtual game. Su Lai's fear of women resurfaced, and he ran away. The excited girl sprained her ankle, and he ended up helping her. This experience pushed Su Lai beyond his limits, and possibly sparked a budding romance. They searched for Xu Nian, but couldn't find him. Just as they felt hopeless, fireworks illuminated the night, telling a story about ancient love. The fireworks were a signal between lovers. Qian Ya immediately went to the bridge and found Xu Nian waiting for her. With Qi Chuan's help, they planned to pick up everyone else. Manager Kui's leg wound became infected, requiring hospitalization. Lu Xiao and Ka Lei finally waited for her colleague to unlock the store. However, their departure wasn't easy. Ka Lei had to pretend that it was a new feature of the virtual lover app to convince her. The colleague, however, remained suspicious and difficult. The girl who had spent the night with Su Lai seemed innocent, but she relentlessly tried to extract information from him. She was seen taking pictures of the group gathered at the library and sending the images to someone. The group found a new hideout at Qi Chuan's partner's house. The girl had tipped off someone about their location, but luckily, Qi Chuan was quick-witted enough to trick them. Suspecting an informant among them, they held a meeting and checked their phones. Everyone was cleared except for Su Lai's new acquaintance. They planned to have Su Lai meet the girl at a restaurant and question her. It turned out she was a fan who had mistaken Su Lai for a fraud, and, upon discovering her mistake, apologized. Su Lai was upset about not being able to see her again because of the potential internal threat to the group. Qi Chuan wanted to end the investigation, while the other four wanted to quickly find the evidence. This sparked a heated argument, causing Y4 to leave angrily. That night, the crucial evidence and a phone were stolen, and Lu Xiao vanished without a trace. This led everyone to suspect him as the informant. Lu Xiao, secretly searching the library for evidence, found the employee with the key code. He obtained the crucial evidence, but was immediately followed by Guang Han's men. The employee was captured, but luckily the group had arrived at the library, successfully creating a diversion and escaping the black-clad pursuers. They managed to evade them, but still had the problem of the informant. Every one of the group's movements was under surveillance. Guang Han's men appeared wherever the group went, indicating that their location had been compromised. However, the informant wasn't who they suspected. Luo Qi was the one who kept revealing their locations to Guang Han. After returning, they decided to leave Luo Qi behind, while the others went their separate ways. They hit a dead end, the only option being to get Guang Han's address from Su Lai's acquaintance. This proved challenging, as she had blocked him. However, she changed her mind and contacted Su Lai, sending him the contact information for Mr. Zheng. After being separated from the group, Luo Qi found a part-time job at a small restaurant. It became clear that Luo Qi wasn't the informant. They had wrongly accused him. Working a part-time job at a restaurant, he even managed to charm Ka Lei's co-worker. Luo Qi was quite impressive. They contacted Mr. Zhang, who gave them the evidence, but they foolishly entrusted it to Xu Nian. Just as he received it, Guang Han's men surrounded them. Qian Ya was stunned. The person she trusted most had betrayed her. She decided to confront him, standing in front of his motorcycle, as he tried to escape. Just as Xu Nian was about to run over Qian Ya, Luo Qi intervened, crashing into Xu Nian's vehicle. Upon retrieving the evidence, they discovered that the driver was a robot, created by Guang Han for the group's debut. The real Xu Nian had been captured, while creating a diversion in the forest. Guang Han's men had Xu Nian suspended from a high-rise building, demanding Qian Ya come alone or they would drop him. Qian Ya handed over the evidence, but Guang Han still released Xu Nian from the building. Qian Ya acted quickly and grabbed onto the rope, saving him at the last moment. Guang Han staged a debut for Y4 using robots, but many fans believed they were real. The real Y4 members arrived at the debut event, seizing the robots' costumes and taking the stage to expose Guang Han's crimes. They apprehended the person holding the evidence. Police surrounded the stadium. Lai Na was subdued by Qian Ya and Ka Lei. Guang Han's power crumbled as Y4 exposed him on stage, and he was arrested in front of his fans. Each member publicly announced their relationships, finding love, and beginning a new life of freedom. Qian Ya successfully revived her company and took over a new one with her boyfriend. Su Lai became a martial arts instructor. Lu Xiao became a movie star. Finally, they all lived happily ever after with their loved ones. This is where the story ends. Don't forget to like and subscribe to not miss out on more amazing videos. For now, goodbye, and until next time.